What's the best world in PvZ2 to live in? I know they aren't worlds as such in a more time periods, but that's what I'll be calling them for the purpose of this video. I'll be breaking down the positives and negatives associated with each world so we can pick one that would be the best. I'm not sure whether to include zombies and zombie types as a specific ranking factor rather than just looking at the actual world itself, because let's be honest, they'll probably turn all of them into 1 out of 10s. Let's start with ancient Egypt. For the pros, you get lots of sunshine, you get to experience history like never before, and you get to see monuments in their ultimate glory. But for cons, you have extreme heat, you'd most likely have to do hard physical labour to survive, and don't even think about climbing the social hierarchy unless you're a scribe, priest or noble. All in all, not terrible, however you'll probably get stuck working as a farmer or labourer for the rest of your life. So I'm putting ancient Egypt in C tier. Let's move swiftly on to pirate seas. I'm going to be classing this as being involved during the golden age of piracy. For the pros, you get to live the ultimate pirate fantasy. You can travel like never before. You can plunder as much as you can fill your pockets. And for the cons, you'll probably end up with scurvy, and with my luck, I'd probably get stabbed over a game of cards. I still think the pros in many ways outweigh the cons, so Pirate Seas is going in B tier. Next up, the Wild West. This is an interesting one. You'd essentially be at the forefront of an ever-expanding frontier with lots of opportunities for a regular Joe, especially if you knew how to game the system. For the pros, you get almost absolute freedom and opportunity. You can experience the advent of technology and the pioneerment of trains. For the cons, you're likely to get robbed, especially if you can't protect yourself, and there isn't much in terms of amenities. If you're between settlements, then you need to know how to survive out on your own in the wild. I'd say this is probably the best option out of the 3 worlds we've looked at so far, but I'm sure there's a much better choice on the list, so let's push on through. Which means Wild West is A tier. Frostbite Caves. This is going to be a real pain. In fact, I can't think of any positives unless you really like snow for some reason. For the cons, you'll probably die of frostbite in like 5 minutes. Easy F tier. Okay, let's look at the Lost City next. This is a bit of a weird one, because you can either look at it as being set in the peak of Mayan or Aztec civilizations. However, the zombies are dressed sort of like 19th to early 20th century European explorers with a sort of gentlemanly adventurer look. So I'll choose the latter, as that's what it seems like the devs were going for. So the pros, assuming you're some kind of adventurer, would be exploring distant lands, possibly finding a lost civilization, or bringing back a whole wealth of gold, ornaments and treasure. And for the negatives, well, everything in the jungle is probably trying to kill you in some way. And if you are European, it could take up to 3 months to travel to South America, and that's just to get there. I still think that it would be an amazing opportunity though, even with the obvious dangers. So A tier. Next we have the far future. It's hard to quantify this one because, well, it hasn't happened yet, but the way society is going, we'll probably end up in some technocratic hellscape. So for the pros, it would be advanced technology, better medicine, and ultimately easier lives. And for the cons, well, technology advancements will probably only be accessible for the inordinately wealthy. Us regular folks will probably end up eating some kind of soy substitute and having to live off a national stimulus when AI takes all of our jobs. Honestly, not too sure with this one. It all depends on where the future swings. I'm putting it in B because it could honestly go either way. The Dark Ages. probably one of the worst on this list. Sure, you could end up lucky as a lord with a fiefdom or maybe even a king with an army, but you're more likely to be a peasant or a serf. You have to deal with the Black Plague, multiple famines and much more. You might even be whisked up to fight in a holy war in some faraway foreign lands. I think at the very least this is D tier. Neon Mixtape Tour is next. Just judging from the overall aesthetic, it looks like you'll end up somewhere in the mid to late 80s. And surprisingly, there's a lot of pros. You're in the peak arcade era, there's no social media, and there's a great music scene. For cons, I guess it really depends on what you're after. A big one could be that smoking is absolutely everywhere, but apart from that, I don't think there is much. Honestly, I'm feeling S tier. Up next is Jurassic Marsh. Judging from the name, we can assume that this world is set in the Jurassic period, meaning that humans wouldn't exist yet. So for the pros, if you're very antisocial, it could be a good way for you to escape. You get to see dinosaurs firsthand, and you'd be surrounded by untouched natural beauty. For the cons, well, there is literally no other humans, so I'd personally definitely be going insane. There's no healthcare, so you might not even survive the week, and not all dinosaurs are herbivores, if you catch my drift. From purely a livability standpoint, this has to be F tier. And for our penultimate world, we have Big Wave Beach. This would most likely have been set in the 1960s, which was a massive peak of surf culture. For the pros, you have stunning beaches, you could surf every day without a care in the world, and you get to experience the golden age of surf and beach culture. For the cons, well, there's a high potential for storms and wave surges. I'd be getting sunburnt constantly, but overall, not a bad choice. I think Big Wave Beach just falls short of S, so I'm putting it in A tier. And now we have Modern Day. I'm classing it as right now, rather than when the developers released it in Plants vs Zombies 2. Don't get me wrong, we've got it relatively good, but there is certainly an element to nostalgia for later periods. If you asked random people whether they thought things were improving, they certainly wouldn't say so. So to keep it interesting, I'm going to pick Neon Mixtape Tour as the best. However, I'd love to hear your thoughts and reasoning down in the comments below. Even with its faults, I'm putting Modern Day in S tier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.